this quick clip, Glenn Beck on Megyn Kelly Show. Watch.
This is the first time in human history that I know of somebody has said who they are and then proven it. Hitler, when he said, I'm going to kill all the Jews, it was in print, it was everywhere, but nobody wanted to believe him because it was too horrific. He even tried to cover it with a final solution and then cover it at the end. He didn't want to be known as that guy. So we didn't know. This time we know. They say it is not about a second state. It is about killing the Jews, period. We know what they say. We know what they do. They put it on social media. They wanted the world to see it. So this goes into not only who Hamas is, but who is Iran, who is Hezbollah, who is the RIGC, who is Black Lives Matter? Yeah. Who are the people that are in our own Congress, in our own schools, that are endorsing this or turning a blind eye? This is where the blessing comes in. This, I think, is one of your last chances to actually get off of that death train and step on to a platform of truth.
Platform of truth. That's why we're here. Let me go to you, Eric, out of that. You hear what Glenn said? I'll give you first chance at all that. What's your thoughts?
Great points by Glenn. There are no gray areas here, Gene. It's really, quite literally, a battle between good and demonic evil. There's really no middle ground here. And as Glenn said, look, Hamas gleefully took images of this carnage. They posted it on social media. They beheaded babies, Gene. They slaughtered babies in their cribs. They burned families alive, and they did it while they were laughing and gleefully transmitting these images to the world. They're telling us exactly who they are. Some 1,300 Jews slaughtered over a 2-day span, the worst massacre against the Jewish people since the Holocaust. What will the world do? I think a big question, Gene, going forward, as Israel does what needs to be done, as it moves into Gaza on the ground to decisively crush Hamas once and for all. Right now, there's a lot of goodwill, and the world is standing with Israel by and large. But as a week goes on, as the weeks go by, Gene, and Israel again, with a very tough, merciless offensive against Hamas in Gaza, does the world return to its default anti-Israel position, start weeping and gnashing its teeth and demanding a ceasefire, including in Washington, D.C.? That remains to be seen.
All right, Emerald, I'll give you a chance here to speak on this as well, because it's you interviewed a lot of people there on your Absolute Truth podcast. I mean, we're seeing what's happening in America, especially. I'm going to play a clip here in just a moment from University of Wisconsin. It's staggering. I feel like I've gone back. This is pre-Hitler era, with people chanting in the streets and actually thinking Hamas is a good thing. What do you think?
Well, look, the indoctrination of our schools is just as we've seen with many of our institutions, and that goes right to the top, right? It goes right to the bureaucracy, the Biden administration, the government as a whole. And take, for instance, the White House itself, because what did the White House do on the day? Most people probably don't know this. It went relatively unnoticed, but what did it do on the day that this was announced, this Hamas strike on Israel? It was holding a barbecue, a staff barbecue at the White House. Now, that's something you would probably cancel. And I mean, maybe the timing is coincidental, but it can't go unnoticed. You also have to understand the important facts. That one that we talk about quite often is the short duration of time between the funding and the $6 billion that they released for Iran, right? Knowing that there's a threat of them funding terror. But secondly, that also went relatively underreported is that there was the discovery of an Iranian spy ring in Washington, D.C. that included the Iranian envoy from the State Department. And another high-up official in the Pentagon, part of the Biden administration. You had that as well. So for the White House to say that it didn't know this was coming or that it's in support of Israel, the facts speak for itself. And look, Israel should absolutely have the right to defend its borders, defend its citizens, in every way possible. It is atrocious what is coming, the images that are coming out of the attacks on Israel and what's happening to poor innocent people. But my concern is the drumbeat of war that we're seeing in the corporate media and even hearing in some ways from our own Congress. And I do have a fear that it is in an effort to draw America into another war into the Middle East. I find that concerning. It may be the final war, right? Because if you see the powers coalescing with Russia, Iran, China, Venezuela, then you have the Western powers. I find that concerning. And even think about with the Ukrainian conflict, right? We have not seen as many images this whole time from the corporate media related to the the Ukrainian conflict. And we are seeing a lot more images out of Israel. And I can tell you, having worked in corporate media, everything they do is on purpose in a way to manipulate the American people. So that is my concern. That being said, Israel absolutely has the right to defend itself and absolutely should.
I agree with that. They should. All right, Luke, I'm going to give you this. I give you the easy one here. Watch this video. This is University of Wisconsin. The protest, which that's part of being an American. You can protest. Glory to the murders. Yeah, that's what I said. Watch.
Glory to the murders! Glory to the murders! Do you know what he's saying when we say, we will liberate the land? There you go. We will liberate the land by any means necessary. We will liberate the land! By any means necessary!
Okay, Luke, go ahead. Let you comment on that.
If that doesn't make you believe that this is a spiritual battle and that evil is at work here in the United States of America, I don't know what will. It reminds me of the Hamas mantra that we love death as much as the Jews love life. Let's scale back, because this is a fundamental misunderstanding of foreign policy and a fundamental misunderstanding of history. And I'm not shocked that it's young college students who are predominantly involved in this discussion on the wrong side of the debate. If Israel laid down their arms tomorrow and said that we just want to exist, they would be completely annihilated. If any of the Arab states surrounding Israel laid down their arms, they would live at peace. There would be peace in the Middle East. There has never been a Palestinian state. There has never not been the presence of a state of Israel in the area where Israel currently occupies. And the problem goes to the fact that while all of these college students and all of the people on the left can say we just need a two-state solution, time after time again, at least 5 times, Israel and the Arab nations surrounding it have been brought to the table. And every time that Israel has agreed to a two-state solution, the Arabs have rejected it, citing back to their 1967 mantra of no negotiations with Israel, no peace with Israel, and no recognition of Israel. They want nothing less than the total and utter destruction of the Jewish people, total and utter destruction of the Israel state. Israel is willing to give up land for peace, but every time that has happened, they've just had more terrorist attacks. When they gave up the Gaza Strip, instead of having peace, they had a terrorist base where terrorists were able to launch rockets into Israel 50 miles from Tel Aviv. And it goes back to the fundamental issue. God gave this land to Abraham. He assigned it to the Jewish people. Back in Genesis 15, the Lord made a covenant with Abram saying, to your offspring I give this land. And what we're seeing right now is the fundamental battle of spiritual warfare. But it is not something that is foreign to the Israeli people. It goes back to before the time of Christ that they've had these discussions, before the time of Christ that we've had this sort of conflict. And I'll wrap it up with this psalm. As I was studying this evening, I found upon Psalm 79, talking about how the nations, O God, invaded your inheritance. They have defiled your holy temple. They have reduced Jerusalem to rubble. Remember that this has happened over and over again with Israel and over again with Jerusalem. But finally, down in the last passage, after Lamentations, it says, pay back into the laps of our neighbors 7 times the reproach they have hurled at you, O Lord, your nation, your people, your state of Israel, that we, your people, the sheep of your pasture, will praise you forever. For generation to generation, we will recount your praise. In the midst of all of the horror coming out of Israel, my prayer is that still the name of the Lord will be praised, and that somehow he is glorified through his people.
I agree. It didn't start this way. They didn't just wake up one day and decide they don't like Israel. Before I get to this version, I want to, something you said, I want to go to David Barton. David, do you think a two-state solution is even in the minds of Israel now?
Oh, no. I think that's in the mind of political people who want to get average people behind the Palestinians. For Israel, I mean, quite frankly, and talking every day since this has started, we've been talking to Israeli folks in the Israeli intelligence community and generals and guys on the ground, et cetera. And what happened here, I was talking to a general just this afternoon. He says, really thinks that what happened with Hamas is because they caught Israel by surprise and had so much initial victory, they overwhelmed the Iron Dome system. They say 5,000 rockets. Israel says 2,500, but in 20 minutes, there's no way Iron Dome can keep up with that. So they had a degree of success, and he says that really, in the military, is always a problem. Victory, too much victory too quick can be a real problem, and he thinks that's what happened. And so, quite frankly, Hamas doesn't know what to do with that. They had so much victory. Here's what I think happened. I think Biden, particularly before this started, was pushing Israel toward appeasement. Just get along, just give them money. You can all live together. We can all cooperate. And then Hamas does this, and they do it to such a degree that it's turned Israel in the opposite direction. This is a text I got out of Israel, and this is a quote from the Minister of Defense talking to the troops in Gaza. This is what he said. He says, "We have abolished all the rules of war. Our soldiers will not be held responsible for anything. There will be no military courts." If I heard that from Israel and I was Hamas, I would be scared spitless at this point because they're taking the gloves off. There's no more two-state solution here. There's no more negotiations. They don't intend to be hit again by these terrorists, and they intend to eradicate them. And I think that's healthy. And by the way, I don't think the terrorists like what they've got. I was told also with American intelligence that our top operatives, including SEAL Team 6, are in Gaza to go extract those Americans that are being held hostage. If I was Hamas, I would not want to hear that at all, that the top operatives in the world are amassed on your border and they're coming after you. I think Israel is taking the gloves off. It's not going to be appeasement anymore in this situation.
I think you're right. I think you're right. All right.
It's not only Hamas that is indoctrinating little children as young as 3 and 4 years old in this genocidal madness. The Palestinian Authority of Mahmoud Abbas also is notorious for its textbooks, its TV programming aimed towards young children, calling for the destruction of Israel and the slaughter of the Jews. And by the way, Mahmoud Abbas, the Palestinian Authority, they are Israel's so-called partners for peace. We talked about the two-state solution a few minutes ago, Gene. I think it's pretty much out the window when Israel on either side has either Hamas or the Palestinian Authority of Mahmoud Abbas, all of them brainwashing from the youngest ages their children to destroy Israel and slaughter Jews. I think a big question here, as Israel moves in to completely eradicate this demonic force known as Hamas once and for all, is does Hezbollah get involved? Does the Iranian regime get involved directly? The head of the snake is in Tehran in the form of the Iranian regime. Hamas has been a great benefit for Iran in its plan against Israel over the years. Every few months, we'd have a flare-up. Hamas firing rockets, Israel responds. Then there's a ceasefire. Israel responds to world pressure and agrees to a ceasefire. That's out the window now. And as Israel moves in to destroy Hamas once and for all, Hamas has been, again, very beneficial for Iran. Do Iran and Hezbollah just stand back and watch it happen, or do they get involved and try and bail out their fellow proxy? That's something to watch in the days to come.
Talk about the Palestinians here. You may have heard this in the news. What about BLM Chicago? Well, look at this. This is in your face. BLM Chicago, that's all. That is all. That is it. I stand with Palestine. BBC. News World, BLM group labels Hamas terrorism self-defense, claims clear parallels between black Americans and Palestinians. And then look at this one, Rhino Workman, far-left non-binary president of NYU Law Bar Association sent a newsletter saying the mass murder of Israeli civilians was look at that, necessary part of the resistance. Such extremist sentiments in support of terrorism are common at universities. All right. Boy, it gets me choked up. Luke, can you imagine if President Trump said it was a necessary part of the resistance is to get rid of a few Democrats? I mean, this is ridiculous.
It's absolutely disgusting, and it goes back to our entire education system. I mean, these students are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars. Well, ultimately, I think you and I will end up paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for them to get a degree in woke gender studies so that they can go and protest and say that they are murdering other people, but it's okay to murder some people. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It goes to the absolute depravity of the nature of their education and, unfortunately, oftentimes their upbringing. And this is an issue that we're dealing with today. They are so dedicated and focused on trying to rid the world of oppression that they don't care if they murder people in order to accomplish one of their objectives, which is completely out of line. Their mindset is so taken with trying to rectify whatever the left thinks is broken that they'll go in without any morals or without any standards and try to fix it over the blood of others. And it just kind of begs the question, too. Who gets to define what is justice? Who gets to define what is moral? If your worldview is so tarnished that you will go out there and say that it is okay to murder people and to cheer for murderers, as we were just listening to, what sort of foundation do you have your worldview set on? We have our worldview set on Bible, on the biblical worldview of natural law and revealed law. They have theirs set on the heart of man, and it is deceitful, and it is wicked, and they are so depraved in their mindset that they don't care what they say in order to accomplish an agenda and an oppression that they think needs to be rectified. And I would dare them to go over into these war-torn areas in Israel and along the Strip and over the border into the Arab states and speak directly to Hamas and see if they give a hoot about what you're saying in their face. See if they care at all about what you're saying before they gun you down. These woke left-wing LGBTQ plus individuals who are suddenly cheering for Hamas and the Palestinians, go overseas and let's see how you're received.
Well, yeah, I think we know how they'd be received. I'm going to show you just a piece of what the BLM co-founder had to say about Israel. Watch.
The other thing I'll say is Palestine is our generation South Africa. And if we don't step up boldly and courageously to end the imperialist project that's called Israel, we're doomed. And I think that I had learned about Palestine for a long time. I had known about it, been wanting to travel, and I was really, really grateful when the Dream Defenders asked me to come on the delegation. But nothing would have prepared me for the level of militarization and the level of violence that we would witness those 10 days inside of Palestine. Nothing would have prepared me for the ways in which we witness people's terror. People live in terror on a daily basis. And nothing would have prepared me for how much clarity I would have on why we have to be a part of Palestinian solidarity.
All right, David. So, let me go back to, before you comment on that, and I want to understand how it could possibly be this generation, South Africa, and how it was, they claim that Hamas is self-defense, clear parallels between Black Americans and Palestinians. Do you see anything that connects those together?
I sure do. Absolutely. American education connects them all together. Luke hit it a minute ago. Every year in America, there are 1,100 on college campuses, 1,100 anti-Israel events a year on college campuses. Israel's the apartheid state. Israel is, and it is a South Africa kind of thing. And this is a real problem we have in America. The whole thing that we've had with critical race theory, with 1619 Project, et cetera, how come we didn't hear that 20 years ago? Because we had much better education. I'll just take a little bit of critical race theory. America had a black man elected to office in a white community in 1641 as a state representative in Maryland. By 1768, we had a number of black officials in office. By 1876, there were 1,000 black officials elected to office in America, mostly out of white communities. I will point out Great Britain did not have a single black official elected to office until 1987. Russia not until 2010. Italy till 2008. How come America is the worst nation education in the world, and we are so far ahead of where we had problems, but we got at them faster than anybody else did. You'll never get that in American education. And the part of the problem we have is we become so biblically illiterate as a national people. It used to be that people in the nation, even if they might not be Christian, they were familiar with religious teachings and religious rhetoric, and we knew God's people, the apple of his eye. We knew that. We don't have a clue now. We're so secular in so many ways that we've lost that biblical foundation, and education is the common factor for all of this. It's a common factor for BLM and critical race theory and the apartheid state of Israel and all the propaganda. It's coming out of education.
Well, let's go to Harvard. Let's see what they were doing. Look at this. Harvard students are legit worried that their open Hamas support will affect future job opportunities with Goldman Sachs. Oh, this gets even better. Look at this. Hedge fund manager Bill Ackman is calling on Harvard to release the names of the students and the groups that sign. Now, look, they signed the pro-terror statement so that employers do not inadvertently hire them in the future. You know, Eric, I'm going to let you go with this one. But Eric, it seems to me, why wouldn't you, if they want their name on the list, suddenly they don't want to be on the pro-terror statement? This is quite the quandary. What do you think?
It is, Gene. Look, if you essentially support genocide, you sign the statement, own it. Own your views, own your ideology. It's interesting to me to see their comeuppance in a sense. They all of a sudden may not get hired by leading corporations. That's the end of the world for a Harvard student. But it shows you the depravity, I think, and Luke and David both touched on this greatly, the depravity among, in general, the education system in the United States, the public education system today. But on college campuses, we've lost the campus. That happened decades ago. And it's a struggle. It's an ideological struggle right now on the campus for the future. That's not an understatement. And to see this, I think it's been an eye-opener for a lot of people these past few days, Gene, to see this at Harvard, which is our leading academic light in the United States, arguably an Ivy League school. But not only that, LaSalle University in my hometown of Philadelphia. At the University of Virginia right now, a professor is offering extra credit to students who attend pro-Palestinian rallies. The list goes on and on and on. There's something really depraved on college campuses right now. And really, I think every parent watching right now with a kid in high school like I have is thinking twice about future plans and certainly thinking, where am I going to send my kid? And many are asking now, I think, Gene, is it even worth it now why pay the big bucks to a place like Harvard or the University of Virginia to have your child be indoctrinated into Marxist madness and now into support for genocide against Israel?
So tonight you can help civilians and families in Judea and Samaria receive the life-saving supplies that they need. Working together, we can impact communities, make a difference, and we're giving you that opportunity. You see the information right there on the screen to make your donation. You know, Word of God says in Genesis 12:3, speaking to Israel, I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse him who curses you. Yes, we are intentional, absolutely, about blessing Israel. If you'd like to be a part of that blessing during this time of war, listen, 100% of your offering tonight will go toward blessing Israel. We're going to make sure it goes right there. It's tax deductible. You can call the number 877-281-6297, or you can visit kcm.org/giveisrael and offer your financial support. Thank you for what you're doing as we bind together to help Israel. You know, this has never been a time like this, David. There's never been a time in our lifetimes. Well, I guess 1973, those of us that are old enough to remember it, that we've seen this sort of opportunity to stand with Israel. Do you agree?
I agree. And I think it's interesting that there's a polarization going in the nation. You can more clearly tell light and darkness than we've been able to in a generation or so. But those that are on the light side, they've got a stronger connection with Israel than I've seen really in a few decades. There is such a strong connection from the evangelical part of America to Israel, and we're seeing more and more folks go to Israel, show up in Israel, want to help Israel, send funds to Israel. It's one of the things we've got with Mercury One. I mean, we're sending right now hundreds of thousands of dollars virtually every day since the war started into Israel because people give. They've got a heart to do that. So, Gene, what's going here with Victory as well and KCM, that's the heart of people, and I think it's really good. So I do think that this is a very good time, but it's like light is becoming more light, darkness is becoming darker, and we saw that, the polarization, even with BLM, the 31 groups in Harvard doing what they did. It's really a dark time on the left side, but it's a time for the right side, or the conservative, the God side, to show up better and be stronger and take a better stand. And by the way, let me just throw one other thing in here. Just from a biblical standpoint, something the Lord has really impressed me with is, if you look at biblically in Revelation, we're told that there is a heaven and a hell, and you see both of them there. And in Revelation 21:8, we're told that there is a genuine literal hell that is a lake of fire, and it tells you who's going there: the whoremongers, the adulterers, the murderers, all the bad stuff. But what strikes me is at the top of that list, the ones who go to hell go there for what they did, where they murdered someone or killed someone or perjured, whatever. But the number one category in that list says the fearful and the cowards. They go to hell for what they didn't do. And polling right now shows that 77% of traditional value Americans, of Christians in America, self-censor rather than say anything because they don't want to create a controversy, make people uncomfortable. And so we're going silent at a time when we ought to be speaking out. And quite frankly, I think there's a lot out there not seeing that, because we see what's happened with Disney, the boycott with Bud Light, with Ben & Jerry's. I mean, there's a lot of people out there. They're just not saying anything. So at some point, we have to get a backbone and stand up. We got to start talking to our colleges and universities, right, the regents. We got to start talking to public schools. We got to start talking to our pastors. We've got to get a backbone and start saying, hey, this is what's right. You need to stand for what's right. And I'm calling out what's right and wrong. And I see that again, going back to Israel. The good folks are really siding with Israel very aggressively, but we need those in the middle to start speaking loud so that we've got a majority going that way, not just a fraction of the nation.
Amen. All right, so once again, that number 877-281-6297 if you want to help Israel. Again, 100% will go for that. We don't take anything out for administration fees or what we pay people to operate here. Or you can go online, kcm.org/FP-Israel, FP as in FlashPoint, FP-Israel, and get your donation in. We appreciate that, and we will get that straight to the people that need it most. But here's one thing. I want to shift gears here. You've heard a lot of bad news tonight. You've heard a lot of bad things but it's been the truth. We've absolutely told you the truth. There's so much more. We could go on for 5 days a week telling you what's going on every night of the week, what's going on right now. It's that crazy of a news cycle. However, here, if there's one thing you remember in all that you saw tonight, it's this: not to be in fear. So, we want to make this available to you. No Fear Here, Pastor George Pearson's. It's a free download. All you got to do is go to kcm.org/nofear, and you can get that absolutely free. It's a download, because we don't need to operate in fear. If you're around Victory at all for very long, you can't have a network named Victory Channel and be in fear. And those two just don't go together very well. And that's who we are. But we don't do it just because of our own human capacity to stand up to fear. No, it's rooted and grounded in the Word of God. And that's why we're here, to keep you in a place of faith, not in a place of fear. So maybe you're struggling. And listen, if you're watching the news and you're watching anybody other than us, you're watching, make sure you're watching Erick Stakelbeck there. You're going to get fear. All right? Don't get into fear. You don't need to be fearful. You need to be fearless. Be fearless in 24. Planning, if you want to get that absolutely free, No Fear Here. You can see the information on the screen and get your copy. We want to sow that. We want to plant that. We want to give that to you so that you can be fearless.